You've heard about taxes. You've heard about money. I'm not going to tell you about how to market it. I'm going to tell you about numbers that you should know about so you know the jungle you're walking into. Oregon spends about $36 billion a year on healthcare. All of the numbers I'm going to give you are approximate, and Charlie Swanson of HCAO can give you precise, up-to-date numbers. So this bar $36 billion a year spent in Oregon.
By state and private, both?
Everything.
Everything.
The answer to that question is about half of it is government and half of it is spent privately. So we've got $18 billion here, we have $18 billion there. That government, about half of it is Medicare, about half of it is Medicaid. There's a couple slivers in here for the VA, S-CHIP, Indian Health Service, etc.
Does that include the federal subsidies that go into the?
No, that includes what Oregon spends.
Actually, Oregon.
Actually, no. This is not the origin of the money. This is who's spending it. So Medicaid patients spend about $9 billion. Medicare patients spend $9 billion.
How many numbers of people, do you happen to know that off the top?
I do, but I don't want to talk about numbers right now. It's an approximately, it mirrors this. So about a quarter of the patients, of the people in Oregon are on Medicaid, a little bit less than a quarter on Medicare.
It's comparable. It's not.
These are correct. Okay. All of these numbers are approximate. You're not going to use these numbers for documentation. You're going to use this for an estimate of how much things compare to each other. You're going to make a little sliver here for VA, etc. Of private spending, about half of it is spent by employers. That's employer shares of insurance, that's self-funded programs, that's reinsurance. That doesn't include the amount that employers pay for extra HR people to manage their own benefits, which is significant. This is all individual spending. Of the individual spending, about 2/3 of that are, let's see, we'll call that employer-sponsored premiums. And the rest are individual policies and out-of-pocket spending. So that's about $9 billion, that's about $9 billion, this is about $9 billion, that's about $6 billion, that's about $3 billion.
Where does the ACA fit in all that? The marketplace? That's in the
These are here, individual policies, and that's only a small fraction of that. You're getting a sense that the ACA marketplaces are a small part of the spending in Oregon. And it reflects a small number of people as well. Policy, this is private policies, out-of-pocket payments, this is employer-sponsored premiums.
And that means that you actually pay the premium the employer is set up for.
This, yes, this part says your employer is sponsored it, and that's your 1/3 or 1/4 of the total premium. That's what would be deducted from your paycheck.
Employer-sponsored premiums are those premiums that I pay.
You actually.
Remember that employer-sponsored premiums are paid by two people. They're paid by you, about 25% of it, and it's paid by your employer. That's why they call it employer-sponsored.
Okay. But it's over on the individual side of the private.
Yes,
Because you're actually.
because this comes out of, you see this. You don't see this spending here.
Right.
I don't see the part my employer pays.
This is the part that your employer pays here.
You don't see it.
6 billion.
You don't see it.
Actually, that's about 9 billion, it's about a quarter. Now, a few other items to appreciate here. Most people only understand this part.
Which part?
The part that individuals pay. Either they're sometimes aware of how much is deducted from their paycheck each month. Most people, once they see it once and then they pay no attention to it. They're very aware if they're buying an individual policy because they're paying it every month. And people are even less aware of out-of-pocket spending because it's a bite here and there, and there's probably not, there's not a separate budget item that they have for out-of-pocket spending because it's unpredictable and irregular.
So like your co-pays and stuff like that?
Yes. Or if you don't have any insurance at all, or your deductible, or your out-of-network costs, or the drug costs for drugs that aren't covered, etc. You know, it's the death of 1,000 cuts.
Some of those cuts get real big.
When you're talking to people about, we can't afford it, where that's coming from is they see this portion here expanded to fill all of this. What we're talking about with single payer is instead of having this government, these taxes go to healthcare, these taxes go to healthcare, these individual policies and out-of-pocket payments going to healthcare, and all of your employer stuff going to healthcare. We're talking about, we're putting it all in one pot. And what people see is their taxes
Why not?
go up. What they're looking at is converting everything that their employer is paying, everything that they're paying, into taxes. Now, some people just see this. Now, to give you an idea of how much money this is $18 billion in new taxes. Now, it just so happens that the total general budget now for Oregon is $18 billion.
Not enough tax.
What that means is not just a little tax increase. The state of Oregon has to double the taxes that it collects to fund a single-payer system. That's true in Oregon, it's true in California, it's true in Colorado, it's true in Vermont, it's true in every state that has looked at it. This is the concept that you will be dealing with. When people say, "Won't my taxes go up?" You can say yes. You know how much you're paying, your employer's paying, and you're paying for health care now? That's how much your taxes are going to go up. There are various ways to patch to this concept, and I can give you a few, but realize that we are talking a lot of taxes. Even if the entire state of Oregon, if we had all 2 million registered voters vote for a single-payer system, our legislators would then have to come up with a tax plan to double taxes.
But the private insurance part that the employer is paying,
Yes.
wouldn't that have to be deducted or changed, or our savings we have by having a bigger pool? It shouldn't be exactly the same as that pie to half.
If we convert to a single payer system and we meet all of the unmet healthcare needs in Oregon, we're going to be paying a little bit less than we do in healthcare. This bar is going to be, the new bar is going to be less than the old bar, but everything's going to be relabeled. That's the challenge. Yes, you.
By the way, one statistic that we've posted in some of our materials before that I found really helpful was the Milliman study that I found. It was reported by CNBC one year. It's also cited by PNHP, but that shows that the pretty good insurance premiums for a family of four now I believe is something like $27,000 a year. But from 2001 to 2016, this is from a CNBC article, it went from $8,400 to $25,000. It tripled in 15 years. Have people's wages tripled in 15 years? Have our taxes tripled in 15 years? This is what's happening. Imagine 15 years from now, what are they going to be? Is that sustainable?
People, is that part of the 1,000 cuts that they just don't notice that that's happening?
Correct. If you ask people how much do you pay for healthcare each year, they're probably going to tell you this segment right here, which is how much is deducted from their paycheck for their employer. But they won't know how much their employer is paying, and they'll probably have very little idea of how much out-of-pocket payments they're doing. But I'm going to build on what Hyung just said. First, when people say, will my taxes go up a little? I say, no, they're going to go up a lot. Now, a few things that you can say. Now we're getting to a little bit of marketing. One is you can say, the amount of money that Oregonians currently pay in premiums and out-of-pocket payments exceeds the amount of additional taxes they will pay to participate in a single-payer plan. That's probably the key sentence you need to say.
Say it again, Sam.
The amount of money that Oregonians currently pay in premiums and out-of-pocket payments exceeds the additional taxes they will pay to participate in a single-payer plan.
I'm going to, eventually we're going to leave this messaging to the marketers, those that have expertise, but I would not use the word taxes even in the second sentence. I would say the additional amount of money that people will have to pay, and they might say, do you mean taxes? But if the more we use the word taxes, the more it reinforces some counter message. We're going to eventually leave this language, this particular language, to a marketing, testing thing. Right now, we're talking about cost shifting. We're going to move the money into a different pool, but you're going to pay less.
Well, I'm going to push back a little about using the term taxes. If we don't use it, they're going to use it. And they're going to set the tax framework. They're going to say, double your taxes, double your taxes, double your taxes. Vote against doubling your taxes. And we're not going to say, well, they're not taxes, they're just premiums.
Well, let's see.
We say, if you're willing to relabel what you currently spend in healthcare as a tax, if you're willing to relabel that check that you write to the insurance company and write it to a single payer agency, you will pay less money, your family will enjoy security, they will get the care they need when they need it, no matter what happens to you, you will eliminate medical bankruptcies, there will be no more labor disputes over healthcare benefits. Any questions?
Sam, that's a perfect example of value for money. People don't just look at the numbers. They say, well, what are you buying for you?
You will need, yes, value. People are going to talk taxes.
Yes.
No matter how you frame this, they're going to talk about taxes. You want to get there first.
Yes, I agree with you, and then say, but the bottom line. Yes, you pay more taxes, but the bottom line for you is, and then then they kind of get the idea.
Okay, Young, then we'll go here.
Again, with the personal stories, right, another important thing, the insurance companies right now are trying to, because of the ACA requirements that their medical loss ratio is no more than 20%, that they actually spend 80% on care and only 20% on administration. Because of that, what they're doing, and this is part of the reason why in West Virginia teachers went on strike, it's not just the premiums that are going up, it's your premiums, to prevent premiums from going up too much, what they do is they increase deductibles, increase co-pays, increase all those other kind of out-of-pocket costs to be sneaky about it. And so when I was buying healthcare on the individual marketplace, right, I was paying, it was a subsidized plan where I was paying a couple $100s a month. That's not too bad, right? But I was paying a couple $100s a month for insurance I could not afford to use, right? I paid a couple $100s a month, and if I actually want to use insurance, I had a deductible of $3,000 I had to pay, right, out of pocket just for a couple months of the end of the calendar year, right? And so the insurance company collects all that money, and they won't use a single penny of it until I pay $3,000 out of pocket. That means I will avoid going to see the doctor for things that I need. And even after the deductible, there's something like 20 or 30% co-pay as well.
Which doesn't count toward the deductibles. And look, you read the Ryan print, from most of these companies now, they're not even counting that towards your deductible. So that's money just going out the window.
I'm going to use my speaker's prerogative and do what I would advise you not to do, which is to run over your comments and questions so I can get in a few more comments. You can say, Oregon already pays more than enough money to provide comprehensive care to everyone, but we don't get it because we are filtering our money through private insurance companies.
Well done.
Private insurance companies take one out of every $5 we give them. Out of every $5 we give them, they keep $1 for their administration. Out of the $4 that go to physicians, we spend another $1 trying to collect money from the insurance company in the first place. That's a lot of administrative friction. That money is more than enough to provide comprehensive care for everyone. Rephrasing it. We are paying insurance companies more money to tell us no than we would pay our providers to say yes. If you are willing to relabel what you are already spending, you will get more value for your money and enjoy medical security. Are you brave enough to pay less money, even if you have to call it tax?
There we go. It's different, yes.
Now, all of that is a cover for this unhappy fact here. You will need to know this so that you understand the virulence that people will have when you talk about just the sheer amount of new taxes. We have time for a few more comments here and then here.
There's something that I don't understand up here, and that is on the 18 billion that is not government. Okay? I know I'm a speaker.
Okay, the thing I don't understand up here is that if we go back up to the top one, $18 billion private. Okay, of that, what was it? 9 billion is employers and 3 billion is individual, or something like that.
I'll break this down.
But it doesn't make any difference to the amount, because if we say that we're already paying that, when I look at that, I see, no, I'm not paying the employer's part. I'm just paying the individual part.
Correct.
Okay, so I can't make that connection between convincing people that they're going to pay the same amount. It just depends on who they're paying it to.
So like, who's gonna pay the money that the employers are now paying, is your question, right?
Right, I can't count that as something I'm paying, although I sort of can see how I might.
Most of the schemes for the new tax schemes try to replicate this and say what employers are already paying for health care will go to the single payer fund. What individuals are already paying for their share of premiums and out-of-pocket payments goes to the single payer fund.
Oh, okay, so in the private sector, is it just you and I, well, because I'm self-employed in the healthcare field, but the individual, an employer is counted as an individual too?
A taxed entity.
A taxed entity, individual.
We already do the same thing with payroll taxes, right? Employers pay a part of the payroll
Right,
tax for
right.
Medicare, and we pay part of that.
The language, though, that I didn't follow was, to me, it sounded like the individual is going to be taking over what the employers are paying.
No, I'm glad you're getting this straightened out.
Yeah.
What we currently pay as individuals goes to the single payer fund. What employers currently pay goes to the single payer fund.
Okay, okay.
And that's your money. I mean, what employers
Yeah.
pay is
Yeah.
That's right.
money.
It's all your money, one way or another.
And we have to convince employers that they then save on that administrative cost.
And
Because
give
the-
raises.
Yeah, well, the amount that employers spend to administer this in search for new plans every year is extraordinary.
It is. And when you're talking to small employers, any crowd, you can ask yourself the rhetorical question, why am I, a hardworking taxpayer, advocating for doubling state taxes? Why am I that crazy? Well, you've got their attention. You can say, because I want my discretionary income to go up, I want medical security for my family, and I want to attract businesses to Oregon. This is an in-your-face kind of confrontation about this issue. It's,
Sorry, if I may ask a question? I was just gonna add, so after you double my taxes and I don't pay premiums or out-of-pocket or deductible, and I pay reasonable prices for my pharmaceuticals, or maybe those are included, will I have more money in my pocket at the end of all of this?
The answer is yes. You will have more money, your family will be stable, and in fact, over the course of a lifetime, no matter how rich you are, you'll pay less in single payer.
Oh.
I'm actually really urgent about this question.
Yeah.
So before I guarantee to somebody they're not gonna have a copay, are we definitely writing that in this plan? You can structure a healthcare plan very many different ways, and a lot of healthcare plans that are single payer healthcare plans still have a copay. So if I don't wanna tell somebody they're not gonna have a copay unless I know they're not gonna have a copay. There are single payer plans where we all have basically the same insurance company, but we still have a copay, and the idea is so that you don't go to the doctor every time you bump the toe.
We can screw up single payer any number of ways.
Right.
We can say it's single payer, but you've got the copay. It's single payer, but it doesn't include dental. Or it's single payer, but it doesn't include addiction treatment. Or it's single payer, but it doesn't include dental, or podiatry, or alternative medicine,
Mental health.
or mental health. We can say the more we cover, the more efficient it becomes. Yeah.
Which I
Our goal-
agree with, but my worry is making a promise.
Don't make a
that
promise.
I can't-
Our goal
Yes.
is not to have a copay.
So that's
In the
our goal.
the legislature, it could screw this up.
Thank you. Tom is making the point. We can offer goals. We can't promise what the legislature will make out of this.
Okay,
We
because
shouldn't
that's
make-
the caution I want to make, is that, like, I don't want to make a promise that isn't going to happen because it gets all messed up in the actual writing rules.
It's been written once as a no copay, no deductible thing introduced already in our state legislature with that language.
I'm going to hand the mic back to you.
Yeah, and we need to wrap up here, but let me just say one thing about this. Every group advocating for single payer is talking about eliminating copays, but it could be possible that we might have a really minimal copay, right? But one thing for sure, it will be minimal, and the other thing for sure is there'll be no deductible.